date is June 12th. And my name's Pete Brooker, here with Rick. I've caught him on the plane. I've collared him, he ain't got nowhere to hide.
No.
Right, you've got a book coming out, Rick. It's called That's Entertainment, all about the years in the Jam. So you say it's about 80,000 words. How long did it take to actually get the book together from start to finish?
It's difficult to say. I started doing it over a period of months, just making notes. And then eventually I realised that I had probably had enough to put all the bits together. And so I suppose about 10 months really to sort of actually do it properly and to get all these little notes that I've written down and get them into some sort of order. I mean, the book is not in a chronological order. It starts off with, I just talk straight away about the Jam splitting in 1982, get that out of the way, and then it sort of darts backwards and forwards over my school years right up to sort of the present day and backwards and forwards, but most of it sort of rotates around things.
Ladies and gentlemen, preparation for departure. Please return to your seat, ensuring your seatbelt is now securely fastened. Tray table is stowed, armrest down, and window
There we go. This is
that
that warning thing no one ever pays attention to.
So most of it obviously just rotates around the Jam. The Jam was what sets the pace for nearly everything that happened in my life, as well as Paul's and Bruce's as well. So.
And did you make any notes when you were in the Jam, like a diary? Did you keep any journals?
No, I mean,
of the events as it was?
I had a lot of tour itineraries and that sort of thing, which I draw the facts and figures from. And I've got a website which is called thejamfan.net, which is really just a sort of archive of Jam photographs and data and information of what gigs we did and that sort of thing. But it is just an archive site, so that was really helpful to because I put that together. It was nice to sort of draw some of the information. I could get some of the when did this happen, when did that happen, and but like I say, the book isn't really written in a chronological order. It's written in a sort of a thoughtful way, as your brain works, I suppose, as you remember things. Like one thing that happened was relative to something that happened years ago and cause and effect and all that sort of thing.
So it's like a non-linear, basically a stream of consciousness as it comes, as and when.
I think it makes it interesting to read. It's not like it's not written like a diary. Then I woke up in the morning and then I had breakfast. Do you know what I mean? It's not like that at all. It's not. It's because it's quite reflective in a way that, like today, I can remember about things that happened in other bands that I was in, but I was in those other bands because of something else. So it's sort of it's constantly going backwards and forwards. I mean, if you read it, you'll see that I think it makes it a bit more interesting and a bit more engaging. That sort of approach, really.
Yeah.
Because my initial approach was to try and write it down in the correct order in which everything happened.
Right, okay.
But it doesn't really work.
I guess your brain isn't wired like that either.
No.
You can't really unload your brain from the minute you're starting the band and then onwards. You can, the most immediate thoughts and the most present thoughts are the ones you want to get out there first, and then you can perhaps fill in the gaps later on. But, so why now do you think was the right time to write the book?
Like I say, it was just something that I wanted to do, and I was just making notes on it and putting them aside for about a year or two, and then realised that I thought, well, I've actually got most of these stories remembered and in note form, and then I just started putting it together properly, which, like I say, took about 10 months. And so when it was pretty much done, I thought, well, I might as well just go and get it published.
Yeah.
There was no real rhyme and reason. There's no real sort of grand scheme to it as to why it was now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff which I've obviously forgotten to put in the book, or I would like to embellish on, or etc. So I might sort of revisit it in 5 years' time and add to it some of the things that I know that I should have put in but didn't. But I had to draw a line under it and say, well, I can't keep this as a work in progress forever, otherwise I'll never get anything done.
You need to draw a line in the sand and get
so I
the first
thought,
edition.
that's enough.
It'd be like a free part, like a Lord of the Rings.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know.
War rages on with different patterns. So, how do fans get hold of you? I mean, the Jam is such a huge band in its day, and it's almost built like what do you say, a bigger cult following in like retrospect from the Jam. I mean, so the fans that are really passionate about the Jam are passionate and hardened about the Jam because it had that little capsule of time when it was in vogue, and it's not gone out of vogue because it's always been timeless music. So how do fans get a hold of you these days in terms of reaching out to you if they want to engage with you?
Well, through the Jam fan website is one. I mean, because I run that myself, there is an email on there, and people are constantly sending me scans of their particular tickets, which is great. If I haven't got a scan of that particular ticket on the gig list, I can just add it onto the site, or I do a thing on there with, as I recall, and you do get the same story over and over again. My memory of a particular gig was this happened to me, I met my wife at this gig, and all those sort of stories, they come up a lot. The people send those in, and I sort of include some of them on the website again on there. So, but it's a weird thing with Jam fans that they're incredibly dedicated, and I think because we had such a great relationship with their fans at that time, that's gone on. You know, I mean, even from last night, there were people who we belong to them and they belong to us. It was a real sort of close relationship. And the most amazing thing for me is that people who weren't alive when the band were playing have got into the music.
There's
and they seem to be just
coming along. And
they seem to be just as much into it as maybe their dads or their mums, which is fantastic.
That's great. And what main, like, if you could perhaps name a couple of top 3 things from the book that people are going to read that they didn't know about? You know, if they're really going to want to know about what happened with the Jam, what would you say?
Well, it's really the side of the story from being, a working musician in a band that becomes very successful, irrespective of whether it's the Jam or it's anybody else. The mechanics of it, for a start, and the sort of experiences that I'm sure a lot of people will relate to, that get into bands and play clubs, and so there's a lot of sort of stuff there which I'm sure is quite ground level, really, but I think it sort of shows that there's no sort of magic ingredient to it, really, in that respect.
It's not like a business plan that you can put together and say, this is all the ingredients we need to make this work. It's lightning in a bottle sometimes.
Yes, it is like that. You see a lot of bands for inexplicable reasons don't click, don't work. And so I think I certainly feel very lucky that the band that I was involved in did, because it's not everybody who makes it, really, who gets the record company attention and goes on and does all the things that we did. I mean, everything that we sort of wanted to do as when we were growing up, we did do. We toured the world, we made great records, we got chart success, made albums, and everything all those boxes got ticked. But the one we didn't see coming, or I didn't see coming, was only after 5 years of being professional. And that was it. It was all over at the top of our game, and it was just the most strangest experience to go through as well. After all of the good luck and the hard work and etc., for it to be sort of pulled away.
I always find that's the most amazing thing with bands these days, that, like, for example, with the Jam, that you're leaving so much money on the table. You're leaving so much potential behind. When you've done all the hard work and you've got there, you think, well, even if we just put our feet up and coast this for the next couple of years, we can still, bang out a couple of albums, make a tidy profit. But it seems like that's probably why the fans are so, a bit like the Stone Roses as well, because you've only got a microcosm, a little minutiae of.
I mean, we were never ones for resting on our laurels in any case. I mean, if you listen to every single one of the albums, they're different from the album before. So we always went out of our way not to go over old ground. We've already done that, so we'll go on to something else. We would deliberately take a different tact with an album, for instance, and say, well, we'll go back to basics, or we'll take another tactical, or we'll make this, we'll have some completely different approach to it, which because a lot of bands do tend to sort of say, well, we'll make another album the same as the last album, and the last album was successful, so this one will be as well.
It becomes formulaic, I guess, doesn't it?
And then that's when you become boring. I think that's one of the things that bands is fatal for groups to become boring. Once they become boring, that's not what it's about, really.
Yeah.
So I suppose we never had the chance to fall into that trap, which is probably a good thing. But on the other hand, I know that we really should have had maybe a couple more years, maybe 2 or 3 more albums in us, which we should have done. It's like it's something unfinished about it, which is, I think, is a shame.
Yeah, which probably gives it that little bit of magic as well at the same time. Something that's
it could be. I mean, you only learn that in hindsight. Though. At the time, you don't think that at all.
So, we spoke about it briefly off mic. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But you said that Paul's not really reached out to you, and he's not really shown much interest. How much does that hurt you personally in terms of a bit of heartbreak?
Well, we can obviously understand that if he wanted to leave the band, and we all lived with that decision, and that's fair enough. We're all big enough to sort of absorb that one. But what I found was, and I know Bruce felt the same way, that we didn't really understand was comments like, "Oh, we weren't mates anyway." Right. Where'd that come from? And we never really got on anyway. And you think, well, anybody who's in a band knows that if you don't get on with people,
you don't
the band doesn't exist. And yet we did exist. I was with Paul for 10 years. And you think, well, why this sudden outburst of those sort of comments, really? And it just seems,
You feel unnecessary, maybe?
I think it's not very civil, it's not very polite, it's just something very odd about that. Why somebody would take a view like that, and to sort of not answer your correspondence or your telephone calls or your emails, it's
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain speaking again. About 3 minutes at the most, and she let us go. This is our delays due to our traffic control restriction in the Gatwick area. Once again, thanks for your patience. When we do get going, flight time 1 hour 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Captain. That's very, very informative.
Maybe we should just leave it there and just, that's.
Yeah, we'll let the captain sign off for us. Yeah.
We're going to take off now.
So I'll just go kind of round up. So what's next for you after the book's been done? Now it's published. That's entertainment. What are we gonna see from you after this?
I don't know. I mean, I have sort of started to pen another book, but I'm doing it because there's a lot of stories that were not really associated with the Jam, but they were things that were going on around that you see happening.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a work of fiction because the stories are great, but the names don't really matter.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? It's one of those. There's scenarios of things that you see happen to other people, or things that are spin-offs that didn't really they're not really associated with the Jam. But so I've started to sort of write some of those other things down. The sort of cutting room floor things.
Right,
they're still good,
yeah.
but
that's kind of entertainment.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Yes. Yeah, maybe that's a good title for it. It's kind of entertainment.
This might be entertainment.
It might be, hopefully.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for taking the time out. I'm sorry I've cornered you on the plane here, but we hopefully killed 15 minutes. We'll get wheels up soon. Great.